Hello, Gothic literature lovers and horror fans. I am JS Larmore, aka Jax, and today in the studio I have Stefanie Contreras. She is a marketing professional and a member of the marketing team at Quill and Crow Publishing House. She is also the author of The Warlock and the Crow, a short story in Rituals and Grimoires, Gothic Tales of Dark Magic and Wizardry from Quill and Crow Publishing House, and today she'll be talking to us about social media marketing and how to make it work for you as an indie author. So without further ado, welcome to Ravens and Writing Desks. Hello, Stefanie Contreras. Welcome to Ravens and Writing Desks. Thank you for joining me tonight. How are
Thank you
you?
for having me. I'm awesome. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. We haven't had anybody in social media marketing on the show yet, and I'm excited to talk to you about it and get that information out there to indies and help them get themselves out into the world and seen. So you work for the marketing team at Quill and Crow Publishing House, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
So tell me a little bit how you got into social media marketing and a little bit of what you do for them.
Sure. I have been a part of social media marketing for a while. That's part of what my degree was in school. I studied communication and branched out into advertising and marketing, public relations, things like that. So it has been a part of my career, like my day job. For Quill and Crow specifically, I received an invitation from one of our marketing team members to join the team as a marketing volunteer to help Quill and Crow. And my primary assignment is to help out with our TikTok page.
Okay. So for somebody like an indie author and just primarily marketing and social media, what's some of the most important things they need to know when they're going in, and they need to know what to market and how to market themselves and get seen?
I think probably the top thing they need to know is that there should be an air of genuineness to the content that they're publishing. Um, Basically, anyone that is viewing your content, you want to come across as genuine and not fake or putting on a different show than what you really are. So if you are maybe creating content that is uncomfortable for you and it's potentially not really hitting well, then that could be a sign that you're not being genuine with your
Yeah.
content. Another top thing that I would highly recommend is consistency. If you are posting content on a regular basis, you're more likely to be seen by the algorithm and to be seen by your viewers. So that consistent posting on your social media is something that you want to try to accomplish on a regular basis, as long as it's not hurting your mental health.
Okay, perfect. So I do want to get into algorithms and consistency there, but also consistency that I found has been extremely important is in branding. So can you talk a little bit about branding and how that helps and streamlining that in all your platforms?
So with branding, basically you don't want your viewers to be struggling to find you. So one thing with branding is it is preferable if you have the same username across all of your platforms. Some authors will look at their socials and they created it before they were thinking about an authorship. And so they might have to go back and redo some things. Or in this case, if you have an old username that you're kind of attached to, you can either kill your darling or come up with a separate social page with the branding that's consistent with your other pages. And then from a look and feel perspective, you want to have consistent branding across all of the platforms so that the look, the feel, the vibe of the content that you're putting out is very similar. If you have a different, maybe you're promoting something else other than your books, you might want to consider doing that on a different page under a different username. But if you're trying to build a brand and create something holistically, then you need to make sure that you're on the same page anywhere someone finds you.
Okay, perfect. And that goes for, as crazy as it seems, color schemes, logos. it gets deep, and I don't want us to have to get into all of that and overwhelm anybody. But just like she said, think of your branding and make sure it's consistent. That's how basically an SEO works. It seems confusing, but it's just you want to get hits on that Google search engine or whatever search engine somebody's using. So the more that you use the same words and the same keywords and the same usernames, the more that you're going to get those hits on that search engine. So make sure you're branding all the way across the board consistently. Okay, so back to algorithms. I think that a lot of authors are uh, reluctant to use TikTok because it seems so confusing, but it's really one of the best places these days to sell as an indie author when you don't have traditional publishing behind them. So, can you tell us a little bit about how the algorithm works and how to make it work in your favor?
I think one of the things that you actually just mentioned is probably a big part of success on TikTok, which is if you are using the same hashtags. So if you have content that you're creating as an author, and we can use Quill and Crow as an example, some of the consistent hashtags that I use when I'm posting on our Quill and Crow TikTok are things like Gothic books, book recommendations, book talk, Gothic book talk, Gothic romance. So I'm staying within that wheelhouse. If I
Right.
start posting on Quill and Crow's TikTok hashtags like on my, say my page, my own personal TikTok, if I started using my hashtags like Hufflepuff or Star Wars or Geek Talk or things like that, then the algorithm is going to recognize that and it's going to decrease the viewership of your videos. So there's a unseen penalty from TikTok for going outside of those wheelhouses because you're clearly creating content that is not what is already consistent with your brand and what people are already recognizing, identifying, and liking. So you want to stay consistent with some of those items. And then another thing that we try to do, especially on the Quill and Crow channels, is that consistent posting. If you start ghosting Book Talk or TikTok, you're going to find that the algorithm is not playing in your favor. So clearly, you know, we're all human and maybe we have day jobs, so it's not easy to be consistent on a social platform. But whatever your consistency is, if you are trying to create a channel for yourself that is thriving and successful, you have to find ways around that.
Right.
Sometimes I've seen authors talk about, you know, I just don't feel like being on camera today. So there are ways that you can get around that by creating different types of content for your social page that is still promoting the same basic concepts, but you're doing
Yeah.
it in a different way. So if you look on the Quill and Crow TikTok as an example, you might see a live reading, someone reading content for you. You might see viewable, like readable content that you as the content consumer can read on your screen.
Hmm.
You might see information about our merchandise, our Quill and Crow shop, or you could see someone posting like a narration, a voiceover, where
Yeah.
there's an audio that they're using and they're basically just lip syncing to it. So there's a variety of different content things where you don't necessarily have to be the person behind the screen.
Right. And we do. I also, and before you came on, I helped with the TikTok. I've taken a step back because of just time consuming, and then I started the podcast, so I'm working on this too. But we also do book trailers and snippets. They don't do as well, I will say that, as face to face marketing, but that's also an option. And even if you're not very good at graphic design, Canva is intuitive and easy to use for anybody at any level of graphic design. You go on there, they have templates for you. You just plug and play pretty much. So that's something else you can do if you're not camera ready. But that I wanted to talk to you about. What's the benefits of face-to-face marketing in this world of social media? Because a lot of people don't even want to share selfies or put themselves out there, but I know it's very important.
It is important, and I understand some of the rationale behind why someone might not necessarily want their own image to be behind the screen. But I will tell you that content consumers, people that are watching those and could be potential future readers for you, the reason why that face to face works so well is because it's easier to identify with another human being and their facial expressions, the humor that they like, the subtle cues, the physical cues that are go beyond what someone is saying or what they're talking about. You might identify with someone and they're not using their own voice, but because you're seeing them and you're identifying them and you're vibing with them, your brain just automatically makes those connections to that other live human being that they can't make in the same way to graphics or mood board videos or other content that you might be creating.
Absolutely. And I think that goes back to being genuine too. Like they can find you more genuine if they see you and they know you, they can connect with you. So it's very important. And I really push that to people. I'm like, especially people who are moving into this new and they're new to social media. And I'm like, I know you don't want to share selfies or you have your privacy, and that's very important too. But uh, younger generations, especially, they want that face to face contact with the people they're buying from, and it's super important. So
Agree.
how do you also work with Instagram and Twitter or Facebook, or do you know much about their algorithms and how marketing with them works?
I don't really work with Facebook as much. I have one for author pages on Facebook that is really there for maybe more written content that I've created. If someone that is a reader is wanting to find me, they can find me there, but I'm not super active on my Facebook page. My Instagram page is definitely much more active for the visual aspect, personal photos. I choose to share that on my Instagram, and also other things that I'm interested beyond writing world. For Twitter, I've found that that has been a great resource to meet other authors in the writing
Yeah,
community. And you maybe not think that it's super intuitive, but really, authors love to read just as much as avid
yeah,
bookworms. And so, from making friendships in the writing community on Twitter, I have personally found that I've created a really supportive fan base of readers who are happily consuming my content because we connected for the same goal, which is our love of writing.
yeah. Well, not only that, I find that writing is not a solitary endeavor. You need people, and that's how you find your beta readers, your editors, your publishers, your agents. I've learned so much there, how to build my website, how to build marketing, how to work the SEOs, how to everything. Like there's a community there that needs to be tapped into and people who are happy to help you, and then you turn around and give them your expertise, and we're all learning together there. So that's the great thing about networking with other authors. And like you said, they do buy your books and they do want to read them, and you find books you want to read, because
Mhm.
that's why we all do this, is our love of books.
It's true. Yeah, exactly. And I can say for Quill and Crow, the way that I found the publishing house was through Twitter.
Mhm.
I saw that there was a call for one of the Quill and Crow anthologies. And if I hadn't been on Twitter and had that come up in my feed, then I wouldn't have found this publishing house and I wouldn't have been invited to participate in that anthology.
Yep. I found them on Twitter too through crow calls. So, and now it's changed my life being with them. So yeah. Um, and I want to talk about your that specifically in just a second, but I do just wanted to ask you a little bit about finding trending sounds and hashtags that you use, because I noticed that when you came onto the TikTok for Quill and Crow, you kind of gone into a different direction, and I like the direction you've gone in where you're using trending sounds, but putting them in a book talk setting. So, Can you give us just an idea of how you find those sounds so that people know where to look and how to find them so that they can do the same?
Sure, absolutely. So when I was invited to join the team and work on our Quill and Crow TikTok, I asked the marketing team, am I on the right page? Like, is what you're asking me to do for Quill and Crow, am I giving you examples that are okay with you? So what I did was I started looking first on Book Talk, the hashtag Book Talk. And I started scrolling through and seeing what are some trends that Book Talk is doing within their community right now, and how can I use some of those similar ideas for our publishing house, because they'll say things like, you know, top 5 books that devastated me, or it might be something like that. And so I think, well, does this make sense for the gothic books that Quill and Crow is known for? Can I use this in some way to be benefit one of our publications? And there are a really lovely wealth of books that are under the Quill and Crow name.
Yeah.
So using that as a baseline, I started out looking at Gothic books, the hashtag Gothic books on TikTok. I think I also looked at things like Gothic romance. And then I also started to think about like the books that were coming out in future publication. What
Hmm.
are some themes that I can borrow from that to try to find some audio sounds, some popular sounds? So, as an example, we were coming out with Her Dark Enchantments by Rosalind Breyer, which is a retelling of the Dark Fairy, the Wicked Fairy,
Yeah.
and her whole concept. So, an easy place to start is obviously there's a lot of Sleeping Beauty audio, but there was even more rich Maleficent audio that we could use and put on its head, or maybe sort of like witchy audio that
Yeah.
would sort of work in that case, because she is a fairy and she has magic, right? So
Right.
there are things that you can start to look at within maybe Book Talk and then see, does this work for what I'm doing? Is this the same vibe that I'm trying to go for?
Gotcha. So basically, your advice is to see what's trending within your book talk areas or even regular TikTok areas, and then see how you can turn it on its head and think outside the box to make it
Hmm.
fit yours. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I didn't ever think about, because I always just use my TikTok for makeup originally, and occasionally I'll
Mm-hmm.
promote my books on there, but I need to use it more for book talk.
Well, I mean, it's a great way to recognize yourself as a person and an author. So, having that mix of content that shows a little bit deeper who you are and what you're about, I think that can be really valuable if you do it in the right way.
Yeah. So let's talk about rituals and grimoires. I have here a snippet from your story, the tales are the warlock and the crow. So tell me a little
Mhm.
bit about you finding the submission call and a little bit about your story.
Sure. So the submission call that came out was essentially talking about rituals and grimoires, and I really liked that concept of the magic books, the magic that you can find in a grimoire, and it sparked a idea for my story, which is called The Warlock and the Crow. And I really spent quite a bit of time thinking about what that might look like. And what started to piece together into a story for me was about this girl who is a crow shifter. And she is under the employ of a warlock, and he has a grimoire that really gives her like a bad feeling every time she looks at it, like a bad shiver down her spine.
Ooh.
But she's beholden to this warlock, and she essentially serves him in his house, which is a manor across a deadly desert. So in her crow shape, she patrols the desert to protect the warlock and make sure that none of the deadly creatures in the desert approach him. And she also patrols the desert to make sure that anyone visiting them, she sees in advance so that she can warn the warlock. So one day a rider is crossing the desert, and when he comes to their manor, she warns her master that she can tell that he is a vampire and he's coming to talk to the warlock about war. And the warlock is willing to hear him out, but there's clearly like a power imbalance there. So the story sort of moves from there, and it's a little bit of a mystery. Like she thinks that her sisters, who are also crow shifters, are dead, and the vampire seems to know more about what happened to her sisters, and it makes her want
Oh,
to hear from him and help him in that way.
that sounds good. Okay. I have not got Rituals and Grimoires yet, but now I'm very intrigued. So, Rituals and Grimoires came out in March.
Mhm.
You can get it at thecrowshop.com if you want to read more Stephanie's story. There is a picture of it. Uh, it's beautiful cover.
I love the cover. It's
I
so
know it's
well.
absolutely gorgeous. That was
Mhm.
designed by Damon Barrett Rowe. She's fantastic. So do you plan on submitting to some of the other calls that they have coming out this year, or did they have coming up this year?
I would like to. I am trying to finish my current work in progress, which has been an ongoing feat. I am way too far into the word count for it not to have ended by now, but I am trying to wrap it up. It's a Latinx superhero origin story, and I would like to finish that, and then I
Ooh,
can focus on the next thing.
that sounds awesome. And what do you have plans for that? Are you going to indie publish or are you going to query that one?
I haven't decided yet. I feel like my focus right now is just so zeroed in on finishing it and wrapping it up that I need to decide what I'm going to do with it. So that'll
Yeah.
come soon.
How long have you been writing?
I have been writing forever, honestly, but I didn't first publish until about 2017. I chose to self publish my sci fi fantasy stories, and it has been something that I've really enjoyed, and I've actually had fun writing shorter stories for anthologies now. And so that's something new that I've
Yeah.
been working on. So I think I'd like to do a mix of both going into the future.
And is that sci-fi fantasy series still out and available?
Yes, it's currently available on Amazon in paperback, Kindle, and Kindle Unlimited. And it's a completed trilogy called The Merry Maids.
The Merry Maids, and tell us a little bit about it.
So
Plug
basically,
yourself. Let's
it's
hear
yeah.
it.
It's a story about a girl who just finished her schooling at the academy. She has abilities of telekinesis and movement, and she's on her very first shipboard assignment with a very small crew called the Merry Maids. That's their nickname. And she's essentially trying to find her place on the ship. It's a found family story, so how she makes a name for herself and a place for herself with her crew. And one of her first main assignments as part of this crew is to track down pieces of something called the Star Killer. So it kind of
Hmm.
turns into like an intergalactic scavenger hunt, aka,
Oh, cool.
yeah, fan service. I have always been a geek and love Star Trek.
I
So the captain of my ship is sort of like a loving homage to Captain Janeway, if you're familiar with that.
no, but I know some Star Trek, but I never really got really deep into it. So, Luke Picard, I know, but that's awesome. As always, I will link everything in the description so you guys can find Stephanie's books and Rituals and Grimoires and all of her socials. So let's talk about how you like working at Quill and Crow. We talked about what you do there. How do you like being there, and how has it impacted you?
Working with the team has been a lot of fun. It is always interesting, I think, to me when you come into a community that is already kind of built and they really just accept you and you're part of the team from day one, which has been really nice.
Yeah.
The team invited me to join the Quill and Crow Discord as part of the anthology as a writer. And the first thing I noticed is that everybody was saying, "Good morning, crows," every morning
Yeah.
in the group chat. So that was sort of nice as like an introductory, and seeing the names that I've seen in other Quill and Crow works or on other Quill and Crow socials. And from there, it's really just been very wholesome and very like just fun and very sweet group of people to work with. So
They
I've
really are.
enjoyed it. And I think what I've had the most fun with is taking some of the stories from the authors that are coming out and putting those into the book talk TikToks that we've been posting on the Quill and Crow TikTok. It's fun to take some of their imaginings and try to turn it into a fun video. And so seeing the author reactions, I think, is probably the most like, I don't need any other things than just to see them like smiling about it.
I love that you said that because not always the TikToks that I do, but I do graphics and stuff for them, either in videos for the when we were doing book trailers and stuff for TikToks, or when I invite them on the show. A lot of the graphics that I post, I'll put together because their books are further from coming out, so we don't have snippets yet for them. So I'll just be
Mhm.
like, okay, well, I've seen the cover, so I'll give me some aesthetics and let me throw something together and see if you like it. And like you said, seeing their reactions, I just love that. I'm like, I'm glad you like it. That makes me so happy because it's so nerve-wracking to take somebody else's art and their vision and try to make something with it, and you just want to make them happy and proud of it, and when they are, it feels really good. So I get that.
Yeah, you totally get it. That's exactly right.
So I have this game that I want to play, and so I thought we would play Two Truths and a Lie Gothic Lit Authors Edition.
Okay.
So I chose five famous Gothic lit authors, and I'm going to give you three facts. Two of them are true, and one of them is a lie, and you have to tell me which one's not true.
Okay.
Okay, so the first one is Edgar Allan Poe. By the way, who is your favorite Gothic lit author, just as an aside?
Actually, the first one I thought of for whatever reason, and maybe it was because Quill and Crow did a recent reading of one of Edgar Allan Poe's works. He was the first one that I thought of. Also, totally side note, but I have the Calm app and it helps me to sleep.
Yeah.
And one of the recent sleep stories, they had two of them that were like nighttime readings of Edgar Allan Poe. And I thought it was really fun idea until I tried to go to sleep listening to these horror stories before bed and realized that was not really calming
Oh,
me.
that's funny. He's actually my favorite too. So I get that. Yeah. Um, we did long, like a month or two long sections of him when I was in high school, and I just fell in love. We read like every one of his stories. So he's always been my favorite.
Yeah, I'd like to read more of his work. I have one of his collections, but I know I haven't finished it. So,
My favorite is The Mask of the Red Death.
mm,
And
mhm.
then a little one I don't that's less known is Don't Bet the Devil Your Head. It's kind of a comedy short story. I don't know why. I just like it because it's kind of funny and it's a little offbeat. But yeah, that one's really good too.
Okay,
It's shorter
perfect.
than some of his other ones, but yeah, it's a
Okay,
comedy one. It's kind of funny.
awesome.
Okay, so two truths and a lie. So the first one is he went missing for 5 days resurfaced delirious and then died 2 days later in the hospital, and still nobody knows why. There's a lot of theories, but there's no actual cause. Two, he was an opium addict. And three, his piece To Helen was written in honor of a classmate's mother who he described as his first pure love of his soul.
Hmm. That seemed awfully specific, that last one. um, I think, okay, so I believe that he did die under mysterious circumstances. I feel like the last one about the ode was so realistic, but then again, he would have been I feel like alive during like prime opium times. So I'm going to say the last one was a lie.
That one was true.
I should have gone with my
Actually,
gut.
yeah. So the opium addict was a rumor,
Mm,
and but there was two doctors that came out and told, or that knew him, that said that they never had any reason to believe that he did drugs. So
okay,
that was not true. Okay.
awesome. I'm
Number
learning.
two is Emily Bront. Is it Bront or Bronte? I've heard
I
it
think
said both ways.
Bronte.
Okay, Bronte. That's what I thought, but I've heard people say it both ways.
Listen, they can tell us in the comments which is right.
Okay. They probably will. I'll probably get reamed out for saying it wrong. All right. Her second manuscript disappeared and was never found. Two, there were many undisputed pictures of Emily painted by her brother Bronwell Bronson. I forget what his name is. I should have wrote it down, but I ran out of room. Three, she once cauterized her own wound after being bit by a rabid dog because she didn't want to worry anyone.
What was the first one again?
That her second manuscript disappeared and was never found.
Hmm. I feel like the painting by the brother was true. And I guess I wouldn't be surprised if the second manuscript went missing. So I guess I'll guess that she cauterized her own wound. It's a lie.
That is true. The second one is a little tricky. There was only one undisputed painting, and the rest of them nobody really knew whether they were her or Anne. So
Oh,
there's only
okay.
one painting that exists that they for sure know she's in, because it
Oh,
was all two
okay.
sisters. Yeah. Okay, number three is Mary Shelley. She is a little risque. Okay, number one, it was rumored that she kept the calcified heart of her husband. Number two, Mary Shelley is said to have lost her virginity on her mother's grave. And three, Frankenstein was the only novel Shelley was ever critically known for.
Okay, so I feel like why was I reading this? I feel like I read something about the graveyard dalliance, so I feel like that was true. Um, and I feel like I have heard something about how she did have her husband's heart. I don't know if it was calcified or not. So I feel like that one was true. So I'm going to say the other one is the lie.
Correct. She had lots of, like several other books that were really big novels.
Okay.
Okay. H.P. Lovecraft. One, he co-wrote a short story with Harry Houdini. Two, he had a habit of dating his letters 200 years earlier than the current date. Or three, Lovecraft is buried beneath a fan-funded headstone that hundreds visit each year.
Oh. Okay, so let me think. I feel like I read something, or no, I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about specifically Harry Houdini and the circle of friends that he was in. So I think that is true that he wrote something with Lovecraft. Also, I don't know for sure, but I feel like the headstone thing is true as well.
So you think the letters is a lie?
So I'm guessing the letters dated, what did you say, 200 years in the future?
In the past. So
Oh, in the
you,
past.
yeah, damn 200 years earlier than what it really was.
Oh, I literally cannot recall any lore about the letters, so I have to go with that one because I don't know.
Okay, that one is true. Um, so the headstone, his fans did pay for it. I think it was like 40 years after he died. He didn't
Mm-hmm.
have one, but for some reason he's not buried underneath it. I don't know
Oh,
where he's
okay.
buried, but like somebody had tried to dig him up and they got like 3 feet and gave up, but he wasn't even buried there. So
Oh,
I don't know why. But I mean,
it
people
was
do
like,
visit it,
yeah, half a
but I don't know
lie.
why. Yeah. I mean, he did write, yeah, the story of Harry Houdini was true. And then they were going to do a second one, but Harry Houdini died. So,
Hmm.
which Harry Houdini was a weird guy. He was really into the occult and traveled in weird circles. So,
Yeah, but he was very like anti um, mediums.
yeah,
He did not, I think he tried to disprove mediums or something like that,
yeah.
if I remember the podcast correctly.
Yeah, I think that's what I remember something like that. Like he tried to call out fake ones.
Yeah.
Okay, last one is Anne Rice. Okay. Number one is she was born Howard Allen Francis O'Brien and later changed her name to Anne because her mom thought it would give her an edge to be named Howard. Um, two,
I understand the
she
thinking there.
it's a little like the song A Boy Named Sue, but okay. Two, she was against the movie adaptation of Interview with a Vampire. And three, she wrote 6 erotic novels and a series of Christian novels.
um, it sounds like such a shame to be against movies that are based on your written works. I feel like that would be just so sad. So I have a feeling, what was the man's name? That was like Howard something.
Howard Allen Francis O'Brien?
Okay, I feel like that was probably true. um, but I'm not sure if she liked her movie or not, the movie adaptation, or if she was against it. Secretly, I hope that she was fine with it, so I'm going to say that was the lie.
That's right. That was the lie. She actually wrote the screenplay for it,
Okay, awesome.
which is probably why that was the only one that was like really on point with the books.
That actually would make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although
The
I
other
did
ones were
love
not.
Queen of the Damned, so just don't tell her I
I
said that.
did love the movie. I really did, but it was more of a mix of Vampire Lestat and a splash of Queen of the Damned. Okay, so here's your chance to plug your socials, your books, your whatever you want to plug.
Okay. Well, you can find me at Latina Geek Girl on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and also my website is latinageekgirl.com. as we mentioned, I have a short story in the Rituals and Grimoires anthology, which I would love for you to read. So you can find that on the Quill and Crow shop, or I believe it's also on Amazon. In addition, I have a science fiction trilogy called The Merry Maids. It is a complete trilogy, which is also available on Amazon. And then I have a short story in the Autumn Nights anthology. It is a Dia de los Muertos story that features the four horsemen of the apocalypse. And our main heroine is Pestilence, and she has an army of bats. So if that might be up your alley, that anthology is called Autumn Nights, 9 Stories to Nibble at Your Nape, which is a mouthful, but all proceeds from sales of that book benefit the Trevor Project, which supports LGBTQ youth. So all of those, if you would like to support, would love for you to look into that more.
Oh, I absolutely will. I'm a sucker for Four Horsemen stories, so, and a supporter of the Trevor Project.
Yes,
Yes,
exactly.
I'm going to look into that.
Thank you.
Okay, Ravens and Writing Desk is sponsored by Quill and Crow Publishing House. If you want to find out more about them, you can check them out at quillandcrowpublishinghouse.com. You can find their merch and their books like Rituals and Grimoires at thecrowshop.com. That's shop with 2 P's and an E. You can find them on Twitter at the at Quill and Crow Publishing, and on TikTok and Instagram at Quill and Crow Publishing House. If you want to know more about me, you can find me on Twitter at jax2_0, on my website at jslarmore.com, and on Instagram at jslarmore.com, and on TikTok at Jax the Tiny Raptor. Thank you for joining us on Ravens and Writing Desks. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any more or so you don't miss any episodes. Thank you for joining me today, Stefanie. I had a great time talking to you.
I did too. Thank you so much. I appreciate the invite.
Absolutely. And thank you all out there for joining us for Ravens and Writing Desks.